Welcome to Prime 9, the countdown show that covers the very best in baseball. Guaranteed to start arguments, not end. This episode features the 9 greatest second basemen. Why 9? That's baseball. 9 players, 9 innings, Prime 9. In order to make our top 9, you had to have played at least 1,000 games at second base.
He gets it, throws him out! What a play by Alomar!
That would be the only reason you won't see the great Jackie Robinson in this show. And then there's Jeff Kent, whose 351 career home runs as a second baseman leads the pack.
The all-time leader among second basemen for long balls.
But Kent is not Superman and did not make the cut. Craig Biggio has more than 3,000 hits and 600 doubles.
Line drive right center field, that's number 3,000!
But Craig's not on this list. And while Bill Mazeroski is widely considered the greatest defensive second baseman ever, even he's not in this group. So let's find out who did make this most exclusive club, starting with number 9 on Prime 9. Before Bobby Grich became a full-time power-hitting second baseman,
At Wally, score!
he plied his craft at a different position.
Bobby was a shortstop originally, and we had to make room for him on the team.
He thought so much of Grich that they were able to send Davy Johnson, their second baseman, to the Atlanta Braves, and Grich really thrived.
There's a long drive, left field, way back, it's gone! The ball game is over.
Grich was special because of his twin abilities to get on base and to hit for power. He has the 8th most walks all time among second basemen. He has the 9th most home runs. This is what made Bobby Grich so very special with the bat.
In 1981, Grich had a phenomenal year at the plate, and he was always breeze with the glove.
Bobby Grich may have been underrated because of his great bat, but he also won 4 Gold Gloves in an era that great defensive second basemen were all over the American League.
Bobby Grich covering so much ground.
He's the only player that can actually be going full speed with the ball hit to his right, backhand the ball, spin on his right leg, and release the ball towards first base. I've never seen anything like it.
The ground ball to the right of Grich. Great stop, plant throw, great play.
Bobby did things that winners do. He was a terrific second baseman. He was fearless, the most intense player, or at least one of the most intense players that I ever played with.
Bobby Grich is the hero!
Ryan D. Sandberg, a sure-handed second baseman with power and speed, earned 9 Gold Gloves, elected to 10 All-Star teams, and named the National League MVP in 1984.
And what a year it was for Sandberg in 1984. MVP and a bevy of offensive stats that spoke to his all-around game.
It was just one of those years where I just felt real comfortable and aggressive at the plate, and I got pitches to hit and I didn't miss them.
Every day he showed up and did something to help his team win. He may get 2 singles and then steal 2 bases and put himself into scoring position. I don't ever recall seeing him have a bad game.
Boy, was he consistent. He was as well-rounded player as I've seen.
There's probably a 3-4 year section of the 80s where if he wasn't the best player in the game, he was certainly in the top 5.
What I saw, he was the best second baseman ever because I think he hit 4 home runs off me.
Sandberg had his most powerful season in 1990 when he hit 40 home runs, a feat that's been accomplished by only 2 other second basemen, Davy Johnson and Rogers Hornsby.
There's a drive, way back. It might be number 40, and his 100th run batted in this year.
I just remember just things clicking that year. I had a good stroke that year. I didn't miss my pitch. I drove the ball out of the park.
And like many of the second basemen in this show, Sandberg was a magician with his glove.
Defensively, the Gold Gloves speak for themselves.
The looper into center. A great catch by Sandberg. What a play.
Rhino was hands-wise as good as you'll see at second base. And you had a sense of comfort when the ball was hit to Rhino that he was going to catch it.
Great play by Sandberg.
If you could summarize Ryne Sandberg in 2 words, it might be understated greatness.
He never really did things in a way that you go, wow. But at the end of the game, you're going, wait a minute, Sandberg was 3 for 4. He had 4 RBIs. Oh, yeah, he made an unbelievable double play. And so when he did that every game, when you played against him, before you realize that he's played 15 years and he's in the Hall of Fame, we would certainly love to have Ryne Sandberg on your team for 10 years.
Listen to the crowd, and he takes his bow.
He was an exciting player. He's the kind of guy you go to the ballpark to watch play.
Alomar, no! He gets it! Throws him out! What a play by Alomar!
I've never seen a better play. I've never seen a play like that.
If there was such thing as a 6'2 player, Robbie Alomar would be that player because you added instincts to the 5'2 abilities that he had.
Rack it up! Another one to the highlight reel!
My priority when I play the game, it was playing good defense.
Another diving play at second base.
He made a play, and you'll say, wow, never seen that before. But then you come the next day, and, oh, that is nothing. You should see the other one.
What a stop by Alomar! What a double play! Oh, holy cow, I can't believe it.
Range up the middle, range in the hole. There wasn't a throw or a play that he could make. He could leave his feet, get up, throw on a dime.
Roberto Alomar with the outstanding play.
Put a quick test on that guy. He has got some range at second base.
I was in right field, and he played second base. Well, he played second base, he played shortstop, he played right field. I had like a 10-foot area where I just kept my ground right there, and I let Robbie in front of me take care of everything.
Throw to first! Got it! Wow!
It's no surprise that Alomar ended up with double-digit Gold Glove awards. But there was so much more to his game.
He was the master with the bat. I mean, he could bunt, he could hit and run, he could hit for power.
Grand slam, home run! Oh, boy. Do you believe it now? Wow!
He could hit behind the runner, he could hit in front of the runner, he could drive the ball in the gap.
Roberto hit 300 or better in 8 full seasons, tied for 5th most at his position.
He came up with so many big hits. When I played with him, it just seemed like he always got a hit. When I played against him, it seemed like he always got a hit. It was just always that offensive pressure.
And he exerted that pressure in so many ways. One of just 3 second basemen ever with 400 steals and 200 home runs.
I love playing the game. I love to play the game the way I was taught to play the game and play hard every day.
Tip your cap to Robbie Alomar.
Solly Gehringer, the flawless second sacker of the Detroit Tigers, is a ball player's idea of what a ball player should be.
He was the smoothest fielder that I've ever seen play. No flare. He knew where to play the hitters, and it seemed that Charlie was usually in the right places at the right time, like all good infielders are. And Charlie was one of the best at that.
Beyond all doubt, Charlie Gehringer is the most graceful fielder in baseball.
At that time, he was the best, and he could hit. He was made for that Detroit ballpark. Good hitting ballpark for a left-hander, and he would use it.
Oh, he was a good hitter. Never struck out much, and he was a line drive hitter.
Gehringer's mastery of the short stride has given him perfect balance and wonderful timing. His flat swing and perfect follow-through account for his line drive type of hitting.
He was a very sharp hitter. He didn't hit too many home runs, but he hit what we used to call frozen ropes. He hit a lot of those.
Gehringer's 1929 season was off the charts, and he remained a consistent force for 19 years. One of them good enough for an MVP award.
Solly Gehringer, elected as the most valuable player in the American League in 1937, also ran away with top batting honors with a percentage of .371.
Gehringer was a middle-of-the-order hitter for a second baseman, which was rare at the time. Gehringer was the American League representative at second base in each of the first 6 All-Star games from 1933 to 38.
Is Gehringer of the Americans getting a double? One of the 8 American League hits that sunk the National League.
He was known as the Mechanical Man for his quiet consistency.
For Gehringer, Mechanical Man was perfect because he did not speak to the reporters. He appeared to have no personality. He was a lunch bucket guy. He just went out there and gave you a 320 and 40 to 60 doubles and 100 RBIs year after year. He was reliability itself.
Gehringer singled, and Tommy Bridges and JoJo White crossed the plate with 2 more counters.
He's on the field every day, plays 19 seasons. It was the consistency that really did it. You talk about Joe Morgan and Rogers Hornsby and Eddie Collins, some of the best second basemen of all time. Gehringer has to be right there with those guys. He was phenomenal. He played on some great teams. He really was the mechanical man.
One of the better hitters that I ever saw play second base was Rod Carew.
Number 29, Carew.
The bat was like a wand in his hands, but what he did to pitchers was no illusion.
I would simply say the best hitter that I ever faced, period. No exception.
The word magician instantly springs to mind. You know, to watch him with the bat in his hand with that quirky stance of his and slap singles and doubles and triples all over the ball field, and to be so audacious on the base paths, he was a wonder to watch.
He's one of those pure hitters.
Deep left. That ball is out of here. Home run for Rod Carew.
You wondered what he actually saw when he was hitting. You know, how big did the ball look to him?
When Carew made his big league debut with Minnesota in the late 60s, he gave immediate notice of his talent and work ethic.
I remember when he came out to spring training and he made the ball club in 1967. He no was that good, but he worked very hard.
Carew, base hit center field.
And that devotion and prowess sent Carew to his first of 18 straight All-Star games and earned him the 1967 AL Rookie of the Year award.
He learned to become one of the best in baseball.
Carew was certainly no slouch at second.
What a play by Carew! What a play by Carew!
But it was his bat that earned him legendary fame.
Rod could do so many different things with the bat, and he was such a smooth player. He was moved from second base to first base, and he took to that transition as quickly as anyone I've seen make that transition.
Although he played only half his 19-year career at second, Carew's speed and artistry with the bat enabled him to collect more batting titles than any other second sacker but one.
Rod Carew won 7 American League batting championships, hit the ball all over the ballpark, and was just a great, great hitter.
There's a drive to left field, base hit. There's number 3,000 for Carew.
Napoleon Lajoie began his career with the National League Phillies, and soon everyone took notice.
In 1897, Lajoie led the league in slugging and total bases, and the following year led the league in doubles and RBIs. He was already an established star, and something that the American League very much needed when they formed and had their first season in 1901.
That year, Knapp moved cross town to Connie Mack's American League Athletics, where he had a year that all but defied belief.
Lajoie has one of those seasons that when you look at it on the historical record for the first time, you almost blink and turn your head and come back and make sure you saw the numbers correct. He hit .426 that year. He won the Triple Crown and was far and away the best player in the American League.
Knapp also stood out in the field in more ways than one.
Lajoie was a huge man for a second baseman. He was 6'1", 200 pounds. We tend to think of Lajoie, because of his size, as something of a Fantasia elephant at second base, a lumbering sort, but all of the contemporary reports and even his Hall of Fame plaque refer to him as the graceful Larry Lajoie.
He played a defensive game with an air and a control and a fluidity for a big man that really caught everyone's attention.
Lajoie moved on to Cleveland early in the 1902 season and became so identified with them that the club came to be known as the Knapps. As for the Knapps' Knapp, well, with his size and overall talent, he all but stood out as a giant among men.
Lajoie was a star, whether in the National League or in the newly formed American League in the first decade of the 20th century.
The second baseman, Joe Morgan.
He could hit the long ball.
There she goes, deep to right field. Put me out of here.
He could hit for an average.
Morgan, line drive, base hit right field, and this one belongs to the Reds.
He could steal bases.
There goes Morgan. He's got it stolen, boy.
When Morgan's got everything going for him, forget it.
He wore the Cincinnati Red uniform extremely well, and he fit in our lineup as well as anybody could fit in.
Joe is best known for his exploits with the Big Red Machine, but he broke in with Houston in '63. and didn't realize his full potential until he was traded.
I had played for the Astros my first 7 years in the major leagues, and there wasn't a lot of history with the Astros. They hadn't won any championships, and they didn't have anybody in the Hall of Fame. So when you go to Cincinnati, all of a sudden, now you're on a team with, Johnny Bench, Pete Rose, Tony Perez, and all these great players, and it's just a whole different atmosphere.
Morgan hits it high in the air and deep to right field.
He was the guy that scared me the most in their lineup. He was lights out.
That man has the upper body strength of a fullback. Look at him.
I'd rather face any other guy on their team except for Joe Morgan.
Morgan was the spark that ignited the Big Red Machine's offense, earning back-to-back MVP awards while leading the team to World Series titles in both 75 and 76.
I think they are definitely the two greatest seasons ever put together by a second baseman. The numbers are awesome. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you really sit down and look at the numbers he was able to produce.
There was no better offensive player in the National League, and I suspect in all of baseball, there in that run that Joe Morgan had. And especially when you take not only the offensive performance, but the defensive performance along with it, it just made him an unbelievable combination.
Morgan will have to hustle. Here's a throw. He got him.
The 5'7" Morgan finished his Hall of Fame career with 5 Gold Gloves, 10 All-Star selections, and acknowledgement as one of the best all-around players in baseball history.
I think Joe Morgan was the most dangerous second baseman that I ever played against. No doubt about it, Joe was in the league by himself.
We now return to Prime 9, where in this episode we're featuring the game's greatest second baseman. Our candidates had to have played at least 1,000 games at second, and all but one of our 9 is enshrined in the Hall of Fame. So who, you ask, are the 2 best second basemen of all time? Well, we've got the answer beginning with number 2.
Confidence, to my way of thinking, is the most important thing.
Confidence was something Eddie Collins never lacked. They don't call you cocky for nothing.
Every player, when he goes to that plate, ought to feel that the pitcher can't get him out.
Eddie Collins could do it all. Hit, run, field, throw. He was a magnificent ball player.
Eddie played 4 different positions his first 3 seasons. But by 1909, he became a fixture at second for the Philadelphia A's budding infield dynasty.
Collins was the star of the $100,000 infield. If you're going to look at monetary value, he was worth $80,000 of the $100,000.
Eddie found his place at second base, and his quickness and ability to get in front of a baseball really held him in good stead as a second baseman, and he became actually one of the best second basemen in the game.
Collins captured the American League's Most Valuable Player award in 1914 and helped his ace secure 3 World Series titles in the course of 5 years.
Collins was the prototypical player for that era. He did everything well that you need to do at the top of that lineup. Dominant in his own way. People think about dominant as 40, 50 home runs, but you can dominate by being a little guy who hit for high average.
Or by stealing bases, which Collins did with alacrity, leading the league 4 times, stealing a career-high 81 in 1910, and finishing with the most thefts ever by a second baseman.
What a stolen base machine. I mean, he just was so fast, so clever, so skilled at stealing bases and just making things happen.
The final numbers in Collins' Hall of Fame career speak volumes as to his offensive prowess, both then and now.
I would argue that Eddie Collins is still the greatest second baseman baseball has ever seen. You can bring up Nap Lajoie, you can bring up Joe Morgan. I'd take Eddie Collins.
But on sheer offense alone, there's no denying that our top second baseman stands above the rest.
Any way you look at it, Rogers Hornsby is the greatest hitting second baseman of all time. The guy was a beast.
This is a guy who hit for power. He ran. He could field his position. He was unbelievable.
Brash and blunt, Hornsby seemed to hold the opposition in disdain. Some felt his unusual stance mocked pitchers from the batter's box, but Hornsby had a more baseball-centric reason.
Will you explain why you stand in the extreme corner of the box, Rog?
Well, it gives me the advantage of stepping in and hitting the ball to any field.
The career of the man they called Raja blossomed with the advent of the live ball era. He won 7 batting titles and did so with power never seen at his position.
What was Hornsby's difference from all the second basemen who had gone before and those who would come after? It was the extraordinary total base power.
Consider that he is the only second baseman ever to exceed 400 total bases, and he did so twice.
We have not seen the kind of play offensively from a second baseman that Hornsby gave us.
Hornsby's combination of consistency and power won him 2 Triple Crowns, a feat matched only by Ted Williams.
Hornsby for 5 consecutive years averaged over 400. It almost looks like a misprint in the record book.
Hornsby is the best second baseman of all time, but the manner in which he roared through the 20s takes him to still another level.
If you go back to 1920, you find that Rogers Hornsby led the National League in average, on-base percentage, and slugging every year for a 6-year stretch. Even Babe Ruth didn't dominate the league to that extent.
In addition to being our top second baseman, Hornsby is also one of just 3 players in the history of the game to get 200 hits in a season for 3 different teams. The second to accomplish this feat was Hall of Famer Paul Molitor, who had 200 hit seasons for the Brewers, the Blue Jays, and the Twins.
Molitor has his 3,000th hit.
Paul played only 400 games at second, so he was ineligible for this show. As for the third man, surprise, it's Juan Pierre, who banged out 200 hits with the Rockies, Marlins, and Cubs. Juan never played a game at second. He's a lefty. But Pierre, one of the hardest working men in the game, can always say he's in a most unique club with Rogers and Paul, and that's saying something. That's our Prime 9. What's yours?